Talk about the worst game of Where's Waldo. The Netflix documentary Amy Bradley is Missing takes a look at a very mysterious case involving a cruise ship, a young woman's puzzling disappearance, and a supposed sightings on a nearby island. On March 23, 1998, 23-year-old Amy Bradley disappears without a trace from the cruise ship she and her family were vacationing on. Despite thorough searches of the ship, Amy is nowhere to be found, and the cruise has already docked in their next port, opening the door for 2,400 passengers to explore the island and allowing Amy to potentially disappear into the crowd. Hours later, Amy is still nowhere to be found, and fear sets in that Amy may have fallen overboard before port, but a body is never discovered. As the years pass by, possible sightings of Amy pop up in various locations from multiple people. This is a crazy 3-part docuseries that features a ton of interviews and archival footage with Amy Bradley's family. Now she, her brother, and mom and dad were on this cruise. Despite several eyewitness accounts of seeing Amy on board at various points during one of the late nights, when the sun rises, Amy's nowhere. Now obviously, the family is a bit worried, and they contact the captain and crew to see if anything can be done to search the boat. But then the ship comes into port, and the crew, they're not amenable to preventing over 2,000 people from disembarking. And they're also not equipped to do a person-by-person search on the gangway. So Amy's nowhere to be found. They have no record of her leaving the ship, so naturally, the family's getting more concerned and unhappy. But after a ship-wide search, cabin by cabin, room by room, and nothing is turned up, the crew is simply uncertain where the young woman went. I'm not trying to blame the family here, but during the process, before the cruise is complete, the family leaves the ship and flies home. This is odd, maybe even sketchy. No, you know what? It is sketchy. If my kid went missing during a cruise, I'd be raising holy hell with any and everyone until they were located. I'd be making the largest scene possible and calling any and all form of law enforcement that I could figure out. And I sure as hell wouldn't allow the ship to continue on. So if you're on my cruise and something like that happens, you've already been warned. Get yourself a cocktail or help out. But the behaviors of the family feel very counterintuitive to what would be considered normal. The search still continues, but after a while, the most likely scenario everyone can come up with is that Amy either jumped or fell off the side of the ship in the middle of the night. But that doesn't totally line up with photographic and video evidence. And what makes the case even more puzzling is that there are reported sightings of a young woman who looks just like Amy on an island nearby. Now, the interviews with the people who claim to have seen Amy alive have at least convinced themselves that's who they saw. So as they talk about their accounts, they come across as believable and genuine. I mean, that doesn't mean they're wrong or even lying, but they feel sincere. We're treated to interviews with the FBI, island locals, Amy's friends and family members, even some of the crew who were working the ship when she disappeared. And all of these are captured in this conversational type of way, so they feel less like an interview and more like a story that's being presented to us. Just this story, it's not fiction. And there's a certain amount of repetitiveness within the episodes, so it can feel longer than necessary, especially while binging. But I just took these sequences to be areas the filmmakers wanted to reinforce because they could be key elements to what happened. There's also a sort of surprise interview that takes place, and not like it's some celebrity there to make the tension lessen. It's just a person talks on the phone with someone who certainly should be considered a person of interest. I'm not quite sure if a person on the other end of the call was informed that they were being recorded for this documentary, though. Now, the whole disappearance and aftermath, they're both heartbreaking and curious. This is presented in a sort of investigative journalism type of manner, but not one with a reporter narrating the script to us. Instead, through interwoven conversations, we're led through the backstory on the Bradleys, Amy's past and her lifestyle, what the family did while on the ship, and then the disappearance, search, investigation, and future sightings. And these take us down the rabbit holes of conjecture and speculation, and never going out so far to be considered ridiculous or implausible, though. The information is compiled to paint this fluid picture while also adding the extra flair of an unsolved mystery to keep the narrative engaging, even nerve-wracking. And because this case is still technically undetermined, the series doesn't provide that satisfying finale of a resolution. So many questions, they're raised. Many are answered, but the areas that haven't been satisfactorily settled just whet the appetite for more information. I mean, if nothing else, this docuseries may provide the needed exposure to reach someone who can definitively provide a conclusion. Now, despite feeling long thanks to repetitive story elements, Amy Bradley is Missing is a fascinating documentary that uses extensive family interviews along with eyewitness and investigator accounts to build the timeline of her disappearance as well as provide clues to what may have occurred. The intimate style of discussions and interviews creates a setting that emits genuineness while still leaving room for questioning doubt. If you enjoy true crime or mystery stories, this can certainly get your mind racing throughout all the possibilities. There's no sex and nudity, some profanity, not really any violence. As a reminder, I don't give couch ratings to documentaries, but I do recommend checking out Amy Bradley is Missing. Okay, have you seen any other good documentaries lately? I've been going through the Trainwreck series on Netflix, and I have experienced fun and horror through some of them. Let me know what you're watching, though, in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.